Welcome or back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be out. I'm gonna listen to this swollen. I'm gonna be reading you to sleep. I apologize for my absence. It's been a little busy. Got some new classes. And I got into grad school. Yay. So I'll be starting a grad school in the fall. New year, new me. JK, it's the same me. But today we're going to be reading. I started this book earlier today. All I read was the prologue, but it sounds so good, like so revolutionary. I feel like it'd be great to give to my pastor. I go to a very progressive church. We believe in, being openly queer, openly trans, anti-racism. We don't practice discriminatory practices, but the difficult part about that as a believer is, this is not a Christian book at all, but this is written by a Chinese or Chinese American trans woman, and she basically tasked herself with writing love letters to people that she found it hardest to love in this world, like ignorant and bigoted people. So it had me definitely questioning my own morality and kind of where I see who we might label as bad people in this world, because we still have to share an earth with them. I'm not saying we should coddle people who make life for others harder, but we should have a way to deal with them and to ultimately value all of our humanness. Everyone is a complex character in some way. Does that mean that their few good actions will outweigh their bad? No. But we are all human. We do all make mistakes. So how do we love the most hateful in our society? So today's book is called Falling Back in Love with Being Human. Letters to Lost Souls. I got this at a thrift bookstore for $5. And this is by Kai Ching Tom. So, for all the monsters who are still waiting to be loved. Okay, this is about to change your life. Dear reader, have you ever wondered how human beings can be so contradictory, so cruel and depraved, yet so capable of kindness all at once. Have you ever struggled to hold on to these multiple truths, to your faith in the possibility of human goodness in the face of all the chaos and conflict that we inflict upon one another? I suspect you have, dear reader. Me too. I've never been a stranger to ethically troubling situations. I grew up as a Chinese transgender girl in a hostile world, and my career has always brought me into contact with the harsher side of human nature. In my adolescence, I was an activist. In my 20s, I was a sex worker and then a psychotherapist. And in the past few years, I've been a conflict mediator and spiritual healer. In each incarnation of my professional life, I pursued the same deeply personal mission: to witness the essential beauty and goodness that lives within each and every person on this planet. To live in the knowledge that everyone is both worthy of love and capable of love. To embrace the revolutionary belief that every human being, no matter how hateful or horrible, is intrinsically sacred. Sacred. Isn't that so radical? Like, I had to take a step back. I'm like, even if you are a loving person, a part of you still wants to hate and have an enemy. But what happens when you try to break that wall down? Let's continue. Although it's been a long time since I was a part of any organized religion, faith has always been my solace and guide. Not faith in any particular God necessarily, though I was raised in the syncretic mix of Buddhism and evangelical Christianity. And both the Buddha and Jesus hold tender spots in my heart, but rather faith in other people. Faith is the transformative power of the bonds between us. Of course, my faith was tested. Isn't that always the way? The trouble with people is that, unlike gods, and I'm so sorry if I butcher this name, I believe it's a Buddhist term, but bodhisattvas, we are only mortals and so destined to disappoint and even harm one another. But in the past few years, I've experienced some deeply personal losses and witnessed some deeply disturbing violence. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change and cancel culture, people seem to be treating one another with a viciousness that threatened to shatter me. It wasn't just my world that was falling apart. It was everyone's. So I wrote as though I might be casting a spell or chanting a religious litany. I wrote, oh, this is so powerful. I wrote as though poetry and prayer might mean the same thing, as if words might reconnect me with what I once considered my unshakable relationship with the human divine. I wrote to summon the language that might help me fall back in love with being human. I wrote my way through the question, what happens when we imagine loving the people and the parts of ourselves that we do not believe are worthy of love? What emerged was a series of love letters to unexpected people and places, to the parts of the world and my own self that I thought were beyond saving. Yes, dear reader, this is a book of love letters to dead people, to exes, to prostitutes and Johns. Love letters to weirdos and monsters, to transphobes and racists, to everyone and everything I have ever had trouble holding in my heart. I needed to know that I could still love them, because that meant I could still love myself. As hopeless and lost as I had become, from the depths of my rage and despair, I needed to find my way back to love. This book is my act of prayer in a collapsing world, my devotion to the belief that we are all intrinsically sacred, my bridge back to hope. I hope it can be yours too. Yours in love, Kai Ching Tong. Radical, y'all. Radical. This is radical love. I was shaking because it's so easy to hate. It really is so easy to distance yourself from people who you don't agree with. But this, actually, I feel, is the love that Jesus preached about. A love that transforms, a love that is boundless. And again, I'm not saying that we should necessarily make space for people who do harm, but we do have to deal with them to a certain extent. And so how do you deal with that harboring of hatred and distrust and betrayal and isolation from people that you don't agree with? Some people choose to isolate and avoid, and some people choose to engage. So this is, such a beautiful and interesting way to view humans and human life, because again, we are all complex characters, so our moralities are so differing. What is most evil to me is not most evil to other people. So we are all sinful to one another, but we can also be loving, kind, and accepting. Giving. So I think that's all of this book that I'm going to read today, because we can really get into it. I do want to come back to this book because, again, this is such an amazing read. And hopefully too long from now. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know. Please let me know. Let me know how you felt about the gum chewing. I don't usually do gum chewing, and I try to make it as minimal as possible because I hate when people just like excessively chew. Like, I try to just chew very naturally. So let me know how you felt about that. A couple more turns. She reminds me of, for those who like, it's not, these characters are not specifically like in anime only, but it reminds me of like action animes, like the character who is completely committed to non-violence and the value of human life, that even when they are faced with death and someone doing a violent action to them, they would rather take the blow than to fight back. And I used to not understand those types of characters. And I'm not saying that I would necessarily be that type of character, but I do understand it after reading this. It's like not allowing other people to shake your morality. Like, if you say you value all humans, then that means even the ones that you feel it most difficult to care for. If you say you're non-violent, then that means even for the people who may or may not be the most violent. And that is a morality that I can respect, absolutely. I can absolutely respect that. But yes, we will jump back into this at another time. Another time. I hope you have a wonderful, 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 wonderful evening. A wonderful evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,